The space around the Kepler Nebula was quiet, too quiet for Captain Minho's liking. He stood on the bridge of the human exploration ship Dauntless, watching the colorful gas clouds drift past the main window. The ship had been traveling through this area for 3 days now, mapping new star systems for the Human Colonial Authority. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on sensors," said Commander Jiwan from her station. She was Minho's second in command, a sharp woman with dark eyes that missed nothing. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she studied the readings. Minho walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of strange?" "There's a ship out there. Big one. It's not moving at all." Jiwan pointed to a dot on the radar display. "About 20,000 kilometers away. The computer says it's not human design." This was interesting. The Dauntless was far from any known alien territories. Finding a ship here, especially one that wasn't responding to their signals, was unusual. Minho had been captain for 8 years, and he knew when something felt wrong. "Any response to our communication attempts?" he asked. "Nothing, sir. The ship appears to be dead in space." Dr. Soman looked up from her science station. She was the ship's xenobiology expert, always excited about the possibility of finding new alien life forms. "Captain, this could be our first contact with a new species. We should investigate." Engineer Hyunsu, a tall man with oil-stained hands, shook his head. "Could be a trap. Why would an alien ship be sitting here in the middle of nowhere?" Minho considered both opinions. The Dauntless carried 300 crew members, all depending on his decisions. But they were explorers. Finding new life was exactly why they were out here. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But keep our weapons ready. Jiwan, I want full scans as we approach." The Dauntless moved forward slowly. The alien ship grew larger on their screens. It was massive, easily twice the size of their vessel. Its hull was dark metal with strange markings along the sides. There were no lights anywhere on the ship. "Still no energy readings," Jiwan reported. "If there's anyone alive over there, they're not using any power." Communications Officer Nari spoke up from her station. "Sir, should I try broadcasting a friendship message? Standard first contact protocols?" "Do it," Minho said. "All languages we know. Maybe they'll understand something." As they got closer, Dr. Soman became more excited. "The design is completely different from anything in our databases. Look at those hull patterns. This could be a scientific discovery that changes everything." But Hyunsu was still worried. "Something's not right, Captain. That ship is positioned perfectly to watch ships passing through this nebula. It's like it's been waiting." Minho felt the same concern. His military training told him to be careful, but his curiosity as an explorer wanted to learn more. "Nari, any response to our messages?" "Nothing, sir. Complete silence." They were now only 5,000 kilometers away from the alien vessel. At this distance, they could see details on its hull. Strange symbols covered the sides, and there were weapon ports that looked much larger than anything humans used. "Captain," Jiwan said suddenly, her voice sharp with alarm. "I'm detecting movement. Multiple ships are powering up around us." The main screen changed to show their surroundings. Ships were appearing everywhere, their cloaking devices shutting off one by one. They had been completely surrounded without knowing it. The dead alien ship had been bait, and they had taken it. "How many?" Minho asked, his voice calm despite the situation. 12 ships, all larger than us," Jiwan replied quickly. "They're charging weapons." The bridge became busy with activity. Everyone knew they were in serious trouble. The alien ships formed a perfect circle around the Dauntless, with no escape route available. A voice suddenly filled the bridge. It was deep and harsh, speaking in heavily accented English. "Human vessel, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to surrender. Resistance will result in your destruction." Minho looked at his crew. Dr. Somin was pale with fear. Hyunsu was already working at his station, probably trying to give them more power. Jiwan waited for orders, her hand hovering over the weapon controls. Nari was recording everything, as was protocol. "Sir," Jiwan whispered, We can't fight 12 ships. Our weapons might take out 1 or 2, but they'll destroy us. The alien voice spoke again. You have 30 seconds to comply. Lower your shields and shut down your engines. You will be boarded and processed according to Vextar Imperial law. Minho had heard that name before. The Vextar Empire was known throughout this part of the galaxy as conquerors. They took over worlds, enslaved populations, and added new territories to their empire. No species had ever successfully fought them off. Captain, what are your orders? Jiwan asked. Minho looked out at the alien ships surrounding them. Each one bristled with weapons that could tear the Dauntless apart. His crew looked at him, waiting for his decision. Some probably expected him to surrender. It would be the smart thing to do. Maybe they could negotiate, find a way to save most of the crew. But Minho thought about his daughter back on Earth. He thought about all the human colonies that these aliens might attack next. He thought about what surrender would mean, not just for his crew, but for humanity itself. The 30 seconds were almost up. The alien commander was probably expecting them to power down and give up. That's what every other species had done. When faced with Vextar superiority, Minho activated the communication system. His voice was steady and clear when he spoke. This is Captain Minho of the Earthship Dauntless. We do not surrender. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Jiwan smiled grimly and activated the weapon systems. Hyunsu began rerouting power to shields and engines. Dr. Somin strapped herself into her chair, ready for battle. Nari started sending out distress signals on all frequencies. The alien commander seemed surprised by the response. You refuse? Your ship cannot defeat our fleet. Surrender now or be destroyed. Minho's answer was simple. No. The word had barely left his lips when the alien ships opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts lit up space as they slammed into the Dauntless. The ship shook violently, throwing crew members against their stations. Lights flickered as the shields absorbed the massive attack. Shields at 60%, Jiwan shouted over the noise. Returning fire. The Dauntless fought back, its weapons targeting the nearest alien ship, but they were badly outnumbered. More enemy fire poured in and the human ship took heavy damage. Explosions echoed through the corridors as systems failed. Engine room reporting damage to the main drive. Hyunsu called out, "We're losing power!" Another wave of enemy fire hit them. This time something important broke. The ship's weapon systems went offline, and the engines sputtered to a stop. The Dauntless was crippled, floating helplessly among its enemies. Shields failing, Jiwan reported. They're moving in to board us. Minho activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice reached every corner of the vessel. All crew, this is the captain. We are about to be boarded. Remember your training. Protect your shipmates. Make them pay for every step they take. The alien ships moved closer. Boarding pods launched from their hulls, racing toward the disabled Dauntless. The first contact between humans and the Vextar Empire was about to begin, and the aliens had no idea what they were getting into. The first boarding pod slammed into the Dauntless with a loud crash that shook the entire ship. Chief Security Officer Tae-hyun felt the impact through the metal floor as he ran down the corridor toward the breach point. Behind him, 20 security officers followed with their standard plasma rifles and riot gear. Remember what we practiced, Tae-hyun shouted to his team. These aliens are bigger and stronger than us. Use the ship's layout to our advantage. Make them fight us in narrow spaces where their size works against them. The boarding pod had punched through the hull near the cargo bay. Tae-hyun could hear cutting tools working on the other side of the thick metal door. The aliens were burning their way through. Soon they would be inside. Positions, he ordered. His security team spread out, taking cover behind cargo containers and support beams. They had practiced this scenario many times, but always against human enemies. Today would be different. The metal door glowed red-hot as the alien cutting beams worked. Dr. Soman's voice came over the communication system. Security teams, be advised that Vexitar physiology shows they are approximately 2.5 meters tall with thick armored skin. Their weak points appear to be joints and the neck area. How does she know that already? Asked Officer Sang-hoon. crouching behind a metal crate. She's been scanning their ship since they appeared, Taehyun replied. The woman never stops working. The door finally gave way with a loud bang. It fell inward, and immediately large shapes appeared in the opening. The Vextar were even more intimidating in person than the scans had suggested. They looked like huge reptiles walking on two legs, with armor that covered most of their bodies. Their weapons were massive energy rifles that would have been heavy for a human to carry. The first alien stepped through the doorway confidently. It probably expected terrified humans to surrender immediately. Instead, it walked directly into crossfire from 5 different positions. Plasma bolts hit the creature from multiple angles. Its armor absorbed most of the damage, but the concentrated fire was enough to stagger it. The alien roared in surprise and anger, raising its weapon to return fire. "Keep shooting," Taehyun yelled. "Don't let them establish a position." More aliens pushed through the doorway. The cargo bay filled with the sound of weapons fire and alien roars. The Vextar had expected this to be easy. They were used to other species giving up after seeing their superior size and technology. But humans were different. They adapted quickly to new situations. Officer Minji had already figured out that the alien's armor was weaker at the joints. She aimed carefully and put 3 shots into the knee of the nearest Vextar. The creature stumbled and fell. "Target the joints," she called out to the others. "Their armor doesn't cover everything." The battle was fierce but brief. The humans had the advantage of prepared positions and knowledge of the ship's layout. When the aliens tried to spread out, they found themselves in narrow corridors where only one could move at a time. When they tried to use their superior firepower, the humans were already behind cover, but more boarding pods were hitting the ship. Taehyun could hear cutting sounds from multiple locations. "We can't be everywhere at once," he told his second in command. "Split the teams. Each group takes 1 breach point." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Dr. Soman was making an important discovery. She had managed to scan one of the alien weapons when it was fired, and the readings were interesting. "Captain," she called over the communication system, "the Vextar power armor has a weakness. Their energy cells are vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies. If we can modify our medical scanners to overload their power systems, we might be able to disable their equipment." Engineer Hyunsu was listening from the engine room where he was trying to repair the damaged systems. "Doctor, can you send me those frequency specifications? I might be able to rig something up." "Sending now," Dr. Soman replied, her fingers flying over her computer keyboard. On Deck 7, another security team was facing a different problem. The aliens had learned from the first battle and were being more careful. They were using their superior firepower to suppress the humans while advancing slowly. Officer Young-ho ducked as an energy blast melted the wall above his head. "We need a better plan," he shouted to his team leader. "They're too strong for a direct fight." That's when Communications Officer Nari had an idea. She had been monitoring all the ship's systems, including the environmental controls. "Security teams, this is communications. Can anyone get to Environmental Control Station, C7? "That's 2 decks down," Young-ho replied. "Why?" "I can flood that section with coolant gas from here. It won't hurt humans with our protective gear, but it might interfere with their armor systems." It was worth trying. Young-ho signaled to his team, and they began a fighting withdrawal toward the lower decks. The aliens followed, thinking they were winning. When they reached the right section, Nari activated the emergency coolant system. White gas poured from the ceiling vents, filling the corridor. The aliens' armor immediately started malfunctioning as the cold gas interfered with their power systems. "Now!" Young-ho shouted. His team opened fire on the confused and partially disabled aliens. This time their weapons found gaps in the malfunctioning armor, but the humans were paying a price for their resistance. The ship's medical bay was filling up with wounded crew members. The aliens might be surprised by human tactics, but they were still dangerous opponents. Dr. Soman worked frantically to treat the injured while continuing her research on alien weaknesses. "I need more data," she muttered to herself. "There has to be something else we can use." That's when she remembered something from her xenobiology studies. Most reptilian species had specific vulnerabilities to certain chemicals. She began analyzing the ship's supply of cleaning materials and industrial chemicals. "Engineer Hyunsu," she called. "Do we have any sodium hypochlorite in the industrial storage?" "Cleaning chemical? Yes, we have several containers. Why?" "It might be toxic to their respiratory systems. Can you rig a way to disperse it in gas form?" Hyunsu was already thinking of solutions. "I can modify the fire suppression system to spray it instead of foam. Give me 10 minutes. While the engineer worked, the battle continued throughout the ship. The aliens were making progress, but much more slowly than they had expected. Every corridor was a fight. Every room was defended. The humans used every advantage they could find. Captain Minho coordinated the defense from the bridge, but he knew this was only the beginning. More alien ships surrounded them, and probably more boarding parties were being prepared. The Dauntless couldn't hold out forever. "Nari," he said to his communications officer, "any response to our distress signals?" "Nothing. Yet, sir. But I've been broadcasting continuously on all frequencies. If there are any human ships within 50 light years, they'll hear us." Minho nodded. Help was probably too far away to matter, but at least other humans would know what happened here. They would know that when faced with an overwhelming enemy, the crew of the Dauntless had chosen to fight. A new alarm sounded. Jiwon looked up from her damaged tactical station. "More boarding pods incoming. They're targeting the bridge this time." "Let them come," Minho said grimly. He picked up a plasma rifle from the emergency weapons locker. "All bridge crew, prepare for close combat. We're not giving up this ship without a fight." The sound of cutting tools echoed through the bridge. Walls. The aliens were coming for the heart of the human ship, but they were about to learn that humans fought hardest when they were cornered. The battle for the Dauntless was just beginning. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and the Dauntless was slowly being overrun. Alien forces controlled nearly half the ship, but every meter had cost them dearly. The corridors were filled with the bodies of both humans and Vextar warriors. Navigation. Officer Seunghwan crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath Deck 5, listening to the heavy footsteps of alien soldiers above him. He had been cut off from the main defense when his section was overrun, but instead of surrendering, he had found another way to fight. The ship's environmental systems were controlled from multiple locations throughout the vessel. Seunghwan knew every one of them. He had been working on a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Computer," he whispered into his portable terminal, "show me the toxic coolant storage system." The screen displayed a schematic of the ship's coolant network. Thousands of liters of industrial coolant flowed through pipes that ran past every section of the ship. The coolant was harmless to humans in small amounts, but in large concentrations it would be deadly to most organic life forms. Seunghwan crawled through the narrow tunnel until he reached access point 7. From here, he could manually override the coolant system and flood specific sections of the ship. The aliens above would never see it coming. He activated his communication device. "This is Seunghwan to any human forces. I'm about to flood decks 4 and 5 with toxic coolant. Any humans in those areas need to get to sealed compartments immediately." Captain Minho's voice crackled back. "Seunghwan, are you sure about this? That coolant will make those sections uninhabitable for hours." "The aliens are already making them uninhabitable, sir. At least this way we take some of them with us." "Do it." Seunghwan began the override sequence. Warning lights flashed in the tunnel as the computer protested the dangerous command. He ignored the warnings and continued typing. Sometimes survival required taking risks that safety protocols were designed to prevent. Above him, the aliens were advancing toward the bridge, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. They had no idea what was coming. The coolant released with a soft hissing sound. White gas began pouring from ventilation grates throughout the 2 decks. At first, the aliens didn't realize the danger. The gas looked similar to the fire suppression systems they had encountered earlier, but this was different. Within minutes, the Vextar soldiers were gasping and choking. Their armor's air filtration systems hadn't been designed for this type of chemical attack. Some tried to retreat, but the gas was spreading too quickly. Dr. Soman watched the results from her medical station and smiled grimly. The coolant is affecting their respiratory systems just as I hoped. Their blood chemistry can't handle those particular chemicals. Engineer Hyun-soo had been busy with his own projects. He had successfully modified the ship's medical nanites, turning healing technology into something much more dangerous. The tiny robots, originally designed to repair human tissue, had been reprogrammed to attack alien cellular structures. "Captain," he reported, "the nanite dispersal system is ready, but I need to warn you. Once we release these, any alien that breathes them in will be infected. It's not a quick death." Minho hesitated. Using biological weapons went against everything he had been taught about honorable warfare. But the aliens had started this fight by ambushing an exploration vessel. Honor was a luxury he could no longer afford. "Deploy the nanites," he ordered. The microscopic robots spread through the ship's air circulation system. They were invisible and odorless, designed to be breathed in without detection. The Vextar had no idea they were being infected until it was too late. But the humans were paying their own price. The ship's medical bay was overflowing with casualties. Many sections were sealed off due to battle damage or chemical contamination. The crew that had started at 300 was now down to less than 150. Communications Officer Nari had been working non-stop to coordinate the defense and send distress signals. Her station was damaged, sparking occasionally, and flickering with unstable power, but she refused to abandon her post. "Captain," she called, "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It might be ships approaching our position." "Human ships?" "I can't tell yet, sir. The signal is too weak. But something is coming." This news gave the crew new hope, but they couldn't count on rescue arriving in time. The battle was still being fought throughout the ship, and the aliens were learning to adapt to human tactics. War Master Kelvoth, commanding the Vextar assault from his flagship, was becoming increasingly frustrated. What should have been a simple boarding action had turned into a costly battle. His warriors were reporting strange attacks from all directions, poisonous gas, biological weapons, and environmental hazards that made no sense. "These humans fight like animals," he growled to his second in command. "They use their own ship against us. They poison their own air rather than surrender." "Perhaps we should destroy the ship and be done with it," his aide suggested. "We have learned enough about human capabilities." But Kelvoth shook his massive head. "No, the Empire wants prisoners for study. We must capture some of them alive. Send in the heavy assault units." The heavy assault units were Vextar soldiers wearing powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to small arms fire. They carried weapons that could blast through metal walls and shields that could deflect most energy attacks. When these new enemies entered the Dauntless, the human defenders knew they were facing their greatest challenge yet. Standard weapons barely scratched their armor, and their return fire could punch holes through the ship's hull. Chief Security Officer Tae-hyun found himself facing one of these monsters in the main corridor. His plasma rifle shots bounced off its armor like raindrops. The alien raised its massive weapon, preparing to end the fight. That's when Tae-hyun remembered something Dr. Somin had said about electromagnetic frequencies affecting alien power systems. He grabbed an emergency medical scanner from a nearby first aid station and overloaded its power cell. The scanner exploded in a burst of electromagnetic energy. The alien's powered armor immediately shut down, leaving the creature trapped inside, several hundred kilograms of dead metal. Unable to move or fight, it could only watch as Tae-hyun and his team finished it off. "All units," Tae-hyun broadcasted, "medical scanners can disable their heavy armor when overloaded. Get to the medical stations and grab every scanner you can. Find." The tide of battle began to turn. Human ingenuity was overcoming alien superiority through pure determination and creative thinking. Every crew member became a weapon designer, finding new ways to turn peaceful equipment into instruments of war. But Captain Minho knew this was only temporary. More alien ships waited outside, and eventually they would either overwhelm the Dauntless completely or simply destroy it from a distance. He made a decision that would define the rest of the battle. "All hands, this is the captain. I'm implementing Protocol Omega. All non-essential personnel report to escape pod stations immediately." Protocol. Omega was the last resort, a plan to turn the entire ship into a weapon. If they were going to lose the Dauntless, they would make sure the aliens gained nothing from their victory. The ship's computer began the sequence that would systematically destroy every valuable system aboard. Databanks were wiped, weapon designs were corrupted, and critical systems were set to overload. But Minho had one more surprise for the aliens. Instead of just destroying the ship, he was going to use it to take as many enemy vessels with him as possible. The Dauntless might be crippled, but it still had one weapon left that the aliens hadn't considered. Its entire mass traveling at high speed toward their flagship. The battle was entering its final phase. Engineer Hyunsu worked frantically in the damaged engine room, sweat pouring down his face as he tried to accomplish something that every engineering manual said was impossible. Around him, sparks flew from broken control panels and emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. "Computer, show me the self-destruct sequence power flow," he commanded. The holographic display showed the massive energy buildup that would normally be used to destroy the ship completely, but Hyunsu had a different idea. Instead of letting that energy tear the Dauntless apart, he wanted to redirect it into their main cannon for one final shot. "This is completely insane," muttered his assistant Jinwoo, as he helped reroute power cables. "The cannon wasn't designed to handle this much energy. It'll probably explode. Then we better make sure we fire it first," Hyunsu replied grimly. The engineering work was incredibly dangerous. They were essentially building a bomb while surrounded by enemies, hoping to finish before the aliens broke through their barricaded door. Every few minutes, heavy impact shook the entrance as Vextar soldiers tried to blast their way in. "How much longer?" called out Security Officer Yoonji, who was defending the entrance with the last of her plasma rifle charges. "5 more minutes," Hyunsu answered, then quietly added, "I hope." Throughout the ship, the remaining human crew was implementing Captain Minho's Protocol Omega with devastating efficiency. Dr. Soman had weaponized everything in her medical bay, creating chemical bombs from cleaning supplies and turning surgical tools into improvised weapons. In the computer core, Communications Officer Nari was doing something even more important. She was making sure that everything the crew had learned about fighting the Vextar would be transmitted to other human colonies. Recording combat log entry final, she spoke into her communicator while dodging energy blasts from aliens trying to break into her section. Vextar weaknesses confirmed. Vulnerable to electromagnetic overload, respiratory systems affected by industrial coolants, power armor can be disabled with modified medical equipment. She attached the file to a long-range transmission and launched it toward the nearest human colony. Even if the Dauntless was destroyed, their knowledge would survive to help other humans fight these enemies. On the bridge, Captain Minho was coordinating the final defense while preparing for his own last stand. Commander Jiwon worked beside him, her tactical station jury-rigged from spare parts and determination. "Captain," she reported, "Hyunsu says he needs 3 more minutes to complete the cannon modification." "He'll have it," Minho promised. Around them, the bridge crew had built barricades from furniture and equipment. They could hear alien forces cutting through the outer doors, but they would hold this position until the engineer finished his work. Suddenly, Navigation Officer Seungwon's voice crackled over the communication system from his hiding place in the maintenance tunnels. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from hyperspace, multiple ships closing fast." "Human ships?" "I think so, sir. The energy patterns match our drive systems." This news sent a surge of hope through the remaining crew. Help was coming. But would it arrive in time? War Master Kelvoth was also detecting the approaching ships from his flagship. His tactical officer reported nervously, "Sir, we count 15 human vessels, including 3 heavy cruisers. They'll be in firing range in 8 minutes. The War Master snarled in frustration. This simple ambush had turned into a disaster. He had lost hundreds of warriors to creatures that should have surrendered immediately. Now human reinforcements were arriving to complicate matters further. "All ships, prepare to withdraw," he ordered. "We'll destroy the damaged vessel and retreat before the human fleet arrives." But his aide protested. "Sir, we still have boarding parties on that ship. If we fire on it now, we'll kill our own warriors." Kelvoth considered this for a moment, then made a decision that showed how much the human resistance had affected him. The boarding parties have failed in their mission. Their sacrifice will prevent these humans from sharing what they've learned about our tactics. The Vextar flagship began charging its main weapons, preparing to destroy the Dauntless and everyone aboard it, including their own soldiers. Inside the human ship, Engineer Hyunsu was making his final connections. The jury-rigged cannon system was ready, powered by enough energy to level a small city. The weapon would only fire once before destroying itself, but that one shot would be worth it. "Captain," he announced over the communication system, "the cannon is ready, but you need to know, the energy discharge will probably kill anyone in the forward sections of the ship. The radiation alone—" "Understood," Minho replied. "All hands, evacuate the forward sections immediately. This is not a drill." The remaining crew members ran toward the rear of the ship, but many were trapped by alien forces or battle damage. They would have to stay and face the consequences of what was about to happen. Dr. Somin was one of those who couldn't retreat. Her medical bay was too far forward, and she refused to abandon the wounded crew members under her care. She sealed the compartment and prepared emergency radiation treatments for everyone inside. "We'll probably survive the initial blast," she told her patients, trying to sound confident. "The ship's medical systems can handle moderate radiation exposure." Meanwhile, the approaching human fleet had detected the Vextar ships preparing to fire on the Dauntless. Captain Yuna of the heavy cruiser Retribution made a quick decision. "All ships emergency hyperspace jump. Put us between the aliens and that damaged vessel. We're not letting them destroy our people." The human fleet appeared in a flash of light, their ships materializing directly between the Vextar flagship and the crippled Dauntless. The aliens found themselves facing fresh human vessels with full weapons and shields, but they were too late to prevent what was about to happen next. Captain Minho stood on his damaged bridge, looking out at the alien flagship that had caused so much destruction and death. Around him, the few remaining bridge crew members waited for his order. "Target the Vextar command ship," he said quietly. "All remaining power to the main cannon." "Sir," Commander Jiwan said softly, "the Retribution is in our line of fire. If we miss—" "I won't miss," Minho replied with absolute certainty. The Dauntless fired its one impossible shot. The main cannon, overloaded with energy from the self-destruct sequence, released a beam of pure destruction that crossed space in an instant. The blast was so powerful that it lit up the entire nebula, visible from light years away. The beam struck the Vextar flagship exactly where Minho had aimed it, directly into their main reactor. The alien ship exploded in a fireball that consumed two smaller vessels nearby. But the effort destroyed the Dauntless's cannon and most of the forward sections. The ship broke apart, its hull cracking under stresses it was never designed to handle. Emergency force fields activated to contain the damage, but the vessel was clearly dying. On the bridge, Captain Minho smiled as he watched the alien flagship burn. The Dauntless had struck a blow that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. The Vextar fleet, faced with the destruction of their command ship and the arrival of human reinforcements, began an immediate retreat. But they were no longer the confident conquerors who had ambushed an exploration vessel. They were a broken force fleeing from enemies they had fatally underestimated. The price of that underestimation was still being paid throughout the wreckage of both fleets. Admiral Kyung-ho arrived 30 minutes after the battle ended, his flagship Resolute leading a full battle fleet of 27 human vessels. The sight that greeted him in the Kepler Nebula was unlike anything in recorded space combat history. The wreckage of Vextar ships drifted through space like broken toys. The alien flagship was completely destroyed, reduced to glowing debris that would burn for days. Two other enemy vessels had been caught in the explosion, their hulls cracked open and spilling atmosphere into the void. But it was the condition of the Dauntless that truly amazed him. The human exploration ship was broken nearly in half, its forward sections completely destroyed by the impossible weapon discharge. Yet somehow, the rear portions remained intact, protected by emergency force fields and the desperate engineering of its crew. "Get me a communication link with Captain Minho," Admiral Kyung-ho ordered. His communications officer worked at her console for several minutes before shaking her head. "Sir, the Dauntless bridge is gone. I'm picking up emergency signals from multiple sections but no command structure response. Through the viewport, Kyung-ho could see rescue shuttles from Captain Yuna's fleet already moving toward the damaged vessel. The Retribution and its escort ships had arrived just in time to witness the final moments of the battle, but too late to prevent the Dauntless from sacrificing itself. Inside the dying exploration ship, Dr. Soman was working frantically to keep her patients alive. The medical bay had survived the weapon discharge, but radiation levels throughout the ship were dangerously high. Her supplies were running low, and several crew members needed immediate evacuation. "This is Dr. Somin to any rescue vessels," she broadcast on emergency frequencies. "I have 43 wounded crew members who need immediate medical attention. Some have severe radiation exposure." The response came immediately from Captain Yuna. "Dauntless, this is the Retribution. Medical shuttles are on their way. Hold on just a little longer." In the engine room, Hyunsu was trying to stabilize the ship's power systems while Jinwoo worked to seal radiation leaks. The impossible cannon shot had nearly torn the vessel apart, but somehow the engineering section remained functional. "The ship won't last much longer," Hyunsu reported to anyone who was listening. "We need to evacuate everyone in the next 20 minutes, or the containment fields will fail completely." Navigation Officer Seung-hwan had emerged from his hiding place in the maintenance tunnels and was helping coordinate the evacuation. His knowledge of the ship's layout was crucial for finding crew members trapped in damaged sections. "Rescue teams, this is Seung-hwan," he called over his portable communicator. "There are still people alive in Section C7, but you'll need cutting tools to reach them. The corridor is blocked by debris." The rescue operation was unlike anything the human fleet had ever attempted. The Dauntless was not just damaged, it was actively dying with systems failing throughout the ship. Every minute counted. Chief Security Officer Tae-hyun was found unconscious in a sealed compartment near the bridge, surrounded by the bodies of alien warriors who had tried to break through his final defensive position. He had single-handedly held off an entire Vextar squad using improvised weapons and pure determination. Communications Officer Nari was rescued from the computer core, where she had continued broadcasting intelligence about Vextar weaknesses even as the ship fell. Apart around her, her transmissions had already reached 3 human colonies and would save countless lives in future encounters. But Captain Minho was nowhere to be found. Admiral Kyung-ho led the search personally, moving through the wreckage of the bridge section in his environmental suit. The forward command area had been completely destroyed by the weapon discharge, but he refused to believe that Minho had died without making sure. He found the captain in the emergency navigation station, 3 levels below the main bridge. Minho was badly injured but conscious, working at a damaged computer terminal despite his wounds. "Captain," Kyung-ho called through his suit radio. "The evacuation is complete. Time to go." Minho looked up with eyes that had seen too much. "Almost. Finished, sir. I'm calculating the trajectory data for the ramming attempt." "What ramming attempt?" "The Dauntless is still moving toward the Vextar formation. If I can adjust our course slightly, we can take out their command cruiser before the ship breaks apart completely." Kyung-ho stared at the damaged captain in amazement. Even now, with his ship dying around him and rescue at hand, Minho was still fighting, still looking for ways to hurt the enemy. "The battle's over, Captain. The aliens are retreating. You've done enough." But Minho shook his head weakly. "No, sir. As long as this ship is still moving, as long as I'm still breathing, the battle isn't over." He finished entering the navigation calculations and activated the automated piloting system. The Dauntless, or what was left of it, began moving toward the fleeing Vextar vessels on a collision course with their rear guard. "Now we can go," Minho said with satisfaction. They barely escaped before the Dauntless completed its final mission. The broken exploration vessel, guided by its captain's last calculations, rammed into a Vextar heavy cruiser that had been too slow to retreat with the rest of their fleet. Both ships were destroyed in the collision, adding one more victory to humanity's account. Admiral Kyung-ho watched from the safety of his flagship as the Dauntless disappeared in a final explosion. The ship had started the day as an exploration vessel on a peaceful mapping mission. It ended as the instrument of the Vextar Empire's first major military defeat. The surviving crew members were taken aboard the human fleet for medical treatment and debriefing. Of the original 300 crew members, only 87 had survived. But their sacrifice had changed the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. Dr. Somian's research on Vextar weaknesses was already being distributed to human military forces throughout known space. Engineer Hyunsu's weapon modifications were being studied by the best human scientists. The tactical innovations developed during the battle would become standard training for all human naval forces. But the most important result was the message that the battle sent to alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. War Master Kelvoth survived the destruction of his flagship, rescued by one of his escort vessels. As his fleet retreated toward Vextar space, he composed a message to the Imperial High Command that would change their entire approach to dealing with humans. The species designated as human does not conform to expected surrender patterns, his report began. When faced with overwhelming odds, they do not negotiate for favorable terms. They do not offer tribute or seek mercy. Instead, they choose to inflict maximum casualties on their enemies, regardless of the cost to themselves. He paused, remembering the faces of the humans he had seen during the boarding actions. There had been fear in their eyes, but also something else. A stubborn refusal to accept defeat that he had never seen in any other species. Recommendation: avoid direct confrontation with human forces whenever possible. If combat is unavoidable, expect heavy casualties and Pyrrhic victories at best. These creatures fight as if death is preferable to surrender, and they possess the technical capability to make their enemies share that fate. The message was transmitted throughout the Vextar Empire and intercepted by human intelligence services. Within months, it had been translated and distributed to every human colony as proof that even their enemies respected human determination. The battle became known throughout human space as the Dauntless Stand. Captain Minho and his crew became legends, their story told in schools and military academies throughout human civilization. But perhaps the most fitting memorial was the simple phrase that became humanity's unofficial motto when dealing with hostile alien civilizations: remember the Dauntless. It served as both a promise to honor those who had died and a warning to anyone who might threaten human lives. The crew of the Dauntless had shown the galaxy what humans would do when cornered, and the lesson had been written in fire across the stars. The exploration vessel had been ambushed by aliens who expected quick surrender. Instead, they had met Oblivion and taken their enemies with them into the dark. From that day forward, no alien civilization would make the mistake of underestimating human resolve. The price of that lesson had been paid in blood and sacrifice. Among the gas clouds of the Kepler Nebula, where the wreckage of the Dauntless still drifts as a monument to the day humanity proved it would never surrender.